You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. We live F1. Welcome to Midweek Missed Apex Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Reddy, but my friends call me Spanners. So, let's be friends. You may have heard that there's an F1 movie coming out, and it is apparently called F1. So we're going to have a little look at the teaser trailer, and also we'll talk a little bit about what we want from our motorsport movies. We have two equally accredited people on the podcast today. So someone who's done a few TikTok videos, we've got Cristina Lee Mace. Hello, Cristina.
Hello, I am boiling hot cooking over here. It is day 4 or 5 of a heat wave, but I'm still enjoying watching movies and just sitting in the darkness of my apartment.
You live in Canada, Cristina. You're not fooling anyone. So it's like 10 degrees and you're melting.
It's like 35.
Is it really? Okay,
it's quite hot.
That's plenty hot. We did have some homework for this show. So I watched Talladega Nights last night. Also, we recently watched Ford versus Ferrari. I've recently watched the Enzo Ferrari movie as well. And of course, Rush, which I've watched about 4 times. Where are you on the motorsport movie sphere? Are you all caught up?
I'm all caught up, I think. I've watched all of those. I watched Rush last night because it had been a hot minute since I'd seen it. And thankfully now I'm all refreshed on it. And I forgot how much I love that movie. And I need to rewatch it more frequently.
And so, like I said, it's all equal. You've done some TikTok videos, and our next guest has an Oscar for a short movie, Two Distant Strangers. We've got Travon Free joining us. Absolutely fantastic to finally meet you.
Likewise, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to talk about this trailer with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, so like you must have obviously more of an insight than us on the sofa, but I will warn you that we treat our amateur opinions exactly the same as an Oscar winner, in the same way that we treat our driving opinions the same as Lando Norris or the McLaren pit wall.
As you should.
Okay, so why don't we get some background then? Cristina, what do we know about the F1 movie so far?
Well, we got the general premise. It is Brad Pitt's character, who plays Sonny Hayes, is returning from sports car racing and gets wrangled back in to Formula One, told, hey, we're having difficulties with our team. Let's bring you in with all your years of experience and have you be our second driver and mentor to the young Damson Idris, who I believe is playing a character called Joshua Pierce. It's an interesting premise. It's not something unlike, we've seen this before. We have seen this before. It's a tale as old as time, especially when it comes to sports. So it'll be interesting to see if they can make it fresh in any capacity. Not that it needs to be fresh. It really just needs to be action-packed. But I'm definitely curious to see if they can invigorate it with anything new.
So the question is, what do we want? If we've got a wish list, Travon, what do we want from a Formula One movie? Really, I just want it to blow my socks off.
No, absolutely. I mean, I want to see Gunther Steiner cursing. I want to see cars going very fast and occasionally crashing. You want to see all the things you love about why you watch the sport every weekend, right? It's not, I don't think it's going to be so much about selling you an amazing story with an amazing plot, so much as how quickly can we get you seeing cars on tracks going fast? Because essentially you're watching Top Gun on asphalt, right? It's
right.
It's the excitement of the thing. The cars go fast, and we want to see the cars go fast, and occasionally see Brad Pitt and Damson Idris.
Yeah,
and apparently Javier Bardem.
So that's the first thing that, as F1 fans, and in our group, there's a lot of racers. Brad Philpott, who of course you're familiar with, the first thing he pulled up is, why is he wearing a clear visor on a sunny day? Go, because we want to see Brad Pitt's face and his emotions and that kind of thing. So that's a common, I guess, filmmaker challenge, especially with things like Top Gun by the same producer. Yeah. And for example, like even anything like military, I can't watch it without annoying my wife, because I'm going, why is that whole platoon of troops in like within 10 meters, within one grenade taking out
Right.
worth of space. So what's the balance for movie makers between catering for a general audience and, people like us who are we are going to be criticizing it. It's unavoidable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, look, you have to recognize there is a business aspect to this, which is people need to make money, and people are buying tickets to see Brad Pitt drive a race car. And if it didn't matter, they could put anybody in the movie and you would go see it, but you probably wouldn't. And so you have to do things like put on a clear visor, and you have to do things that may not necessarily be as realistic as what we see every weekend, in the reality of the sport. But, you have to do it close enough with the audience, or hoping your audience has enough forgiveness and understanding. You are making a fake product. You're telling a fictional story, and there are elements of that are required to be changed for that to work. Because if you're going to drive around in a car with Brad Pitt and a dark visor, it could be anyone in the car. Like, why do you need to pay Brad Pitt $20 million when you could just throw me in there, or throw you in there and put the dark visor on, right?
I'd do it, but I wouldn't stay on track very long. And for example, in Top Gun Maverick, the baddies just had blank visors.
Yeah.
So I guess a movie audience is trained that a not see-through visor means they're not important.
Also, too, like you also are, like in something like Maverick, you have an enemy who has no real identifiable place of origin. And
yeah, that's
so
easier, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't really offend anyone. But in this particular case, like, there are teams. There's Red Bull, there's McLaren, there's Aston Martin, there's Mercedes. And so there are discernible enemies. Granted, we don't know who they will be in this particular story, what teams will be the favorites. And I'm assuming, because one of the producers is a Mercedes driver, that the Mercedes team will be looked on a little favorably. But yeah, you have to definitely. I mean, it depends on how early he knew he was leaving, right? But if you're making a movie like this, I think David and Jerry and Brad are very aware of what they're selling you. And they know if you're making a Formula One movie, there's a reason you go to Jerry Bruckheimer, the guy who made Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick and Gone in 60 Seconds and Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, yeah. Like, Jerry is Bad Boys 1 through 4, right? Like, that's the guy you go to get you the adrenaline pumping, action packed. I can watch that 5 times because I don't have to think too deeply about story all the time necessarily, which is not a negative thing. It's just the way certain movies are made. And you don't need a complex, complicated story to talk about, to get people watching F1 driving.
Wait a minute. What, you're not saying that they're going to have, a full hour on how to preserve the front left tyre around Stowe and into Maggots and Beckett's to get a little bit of extra tyre life delta towards the final stint? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
come on.
I mean, look, when I first saw the teaser, my maggots were at full Beckett's after I watched.
You were happy? Right, you were happy?
I was very happy. I was very happy with what I saw. I'm looking forward to seeing the full trailer. I think they did a good job of coming out of the gate and showing people this is a movie about racing. They didn't spend a lot of time talking about how fast we have to be in the turns, how we're going to get fast in the turns.
I
don't think there'll be a 10-minute scene of shaving rubber off tires.
I know. I was a bit scared that at some point he was going to say, and how'd you go fast in corners? And then points at Jonah Hill, who goes, downforce, downforce, boss. Cristina, what was your initial impression of the trailer? Because obviously a lot of it has been in around real F1 teams. Like Verstappen is right there in the trailer.
I did not love the trailer.
Oh,
I was left a little bit disappointed. Like, I always knew that we were going to be getting good action stuff. That was without question. I don't have any doubt that that's going to be the highlight of the movie. But it really took me out of being immersed in the project to all of a sudden have the lines of like, who cares about safety?
Oh yeah,
Like,
the
that
scrutineers,
just took
the
me out of it.
scrutineers, Brad. They really care about safety. You will be disqualified.
Yeah. Well, and especially because we've already had how many movies where back in the day it was about safety? Like that's all that the movies in set in what the 60s,
Yeah, Rush
70s,
Rush
80s.
had a big theme of it. Yeah,
Exactly. All of those movies are about safety and it was genuine. But to try and make this modern day one about safety in any capacity, it's really disingenuous because the conversations we have about safety these days are all about procedure at the end of the day. It's not actually about what the most severe injury we've had recently is thumbs.
Ricardo's
Which
wrist. Yeah, 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 yeah.
exactly. And any other incident, it looks dangerous, but the vast majority of the time, it's like, nope, we just have to double check that all the safety things worked properly. Yep, they did. Great. So why wouldn't you already direct our attention to something else right off the bat? Why are you bringing up safety?
I will say to that point, you have to distinguish between a teaser and a trailer.
Mhm.
Now, this being a teaser, it's clearly setting you up for something. Its intention is to misdirect you in some way to get you to think you're about to watch something that may be entirely different from what you're being led to believe the actual setup may be. To your point, that safety is of the utmost importance in Formula One. So if a movie that's produced by Lewis Hamilton puts out a teaser trailer where Brad Pitt says, screw safety, you know something's up. You just know something's up. And so I would definitely take that with a huge gallon of salt.
But it is like cool to be like, who cares? You know, I don't have time to bleed. That kind of line. That's a cool
Right,
Hollywood
right.
movie line. So I think there's two worlds where we can accept that kind of Hollywood excitement, but we can also, as F1 fans, I think we can have our moment of going, actually. And my first actually from the trailer, which is, by the way, F1 was always like a really niche kind of nerd thing in the 80s and 90s. You'd go to school and you'd say, did you watch the Formula One? And everyone would say, no, shut up. We watched football. Formula One's like beads on a string falling from one side to the other side. So to suddenly have America so interested in Formula One that Brad Pitt is doing a movie called F1, that's really, really cool. But that is not going to stop me from immediately being disappointed by the opening line. So if there's still time for misdirects, this would be my sell to the F1 movie, that the opening line of Aston Martin, Red Bull, Mercedes, they're all fast in a straight line and they're safe. We've got to fight in the turns. And, you know, we've got the turns. How come no one thought of the turns, Travon? Oh, the other teams will be kicking themselves, won't they?
It was sitting right there in front of
all
us.
along the turns. I mean, we were so comfortable in a straight line. But the general sporting premise, which is a sporting trope, which is I've seen something no one else has seen. So this is like the Moneyball moment of the F1 movie. And I suppose if you don't know about, you know, aerodynamics being the core of Formula One, I mean, if this was a 70s F1 movie, then that would definitely kind of be true, I guess.
I mean, look, there's probably going to be a 7-minute scene where Brad explains downforce.
Yes.
And then we're going to find out the only way for this team to possibly meet its goal is to cut some kind of corner. And things are going to get a little dangerous, but everybody's going to do their job. And 3 people are going to know the secret. And maybe they don't tell anybody, and then someone's going to crash and almost die. And everyone's going to get in trouble.
Yeah, they're going to lose faith in it and say, we've got to stop doing that killer secret thing. But they go, no, here's a chart. And then they carry on doing it. But I mean, the real life versions of finding that killer thing are less interesting. So you've got like Brawn 2009, blown diffuser, or more recently, and I'm not going to name any team, but more recently, a team got very good at copying things that were working on other teams. But a computer scan of like the brake duct, I've just given it away, haven't I? But a computer scan of a brake duct isn't as sexy as Brad Pitt going, we've got to fight in the turns.
I would be fine with them being like, okay, yes, there's inherent risk in the movie, not in the movie, in the racing. I don't mind the things that they're pointing out with those lines. I just dislike the way that they phrased them. I think there would have been much more interesting ways to say there's inherent danger and we're going to accept that. And we need to find something to do that the other teams haven't. I think there were much more interesting ways to put those lines. And the other thing is, and you guys keep mentioning him of Brad Pitt this, Brad Pitt that. I think there's a huge overestimation of how big of a star he still is.
Ooh,
Like,
controversial. Well,
Really?
you're young and
yeah,
interesting.
like
I'm old, and to me, he's like the biggest movie star in the world.
no, the majority of people that are in my demographic, are in my sphere, we look at Brad Pitt as he was a movie star.
Which is why they put Damson Idris in the movie.
But again, Damson Idris he's on the edge of he could be popular, but there's a big could. And I don't know if you guys would know about this test, but I went and I did the Tumblr test where you go
Ah,
and you look up an actor's name on Tumblr and the amount of results that you get from Tumblr, which is the fangirls site to, get a litmus test of how popular this actor is going to be. And he's not close to the precipice of any sort of thing that we've seen from actors before they've exploded and gotten, fangirled, before they've gotten and become the boy of the summer, so to speak, and had all of the edits put together of them. Before Top Gun Maverick, you could see that happening for Glenn Powell and actor who played Bradley Rooster, whose name is slipping my mind. But you
Miles
could see
Teller.
that coming. Thank you, Miles Teller. And with Damson, he is niche known, but he's not like precipice known. So I think it's a very interesting casting choice where there probably would have been actors you could have gone with that had more guaranteed success with the fangirls and that mass amount of free publicity that you get from them.
I think there is in those choices definitely some Hollywood math going on there. And with one being, if you're making a movie with a budget, an American film with a budget around $200 million, you are 100% not going to get a studio to make that movie with anyone below a Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Denzel Washington level actor. You're just not going to do it. So in this particular case, you're serving a number of masters. You have Brad Pitt, who is a name every American knows. You have an American audience who is just latching on to F1 in the way that it has in recent years. And you have an up and coming Brit in, and I use up and coming very loosely because he's been on a hit TV show, was on a hit TV show for 5 or 6 seasons in Damson Idris. And on a macro level, he's not the biggest star, but he is also a young Black actor that Black people are familiar with. And in America, Black people are over-indexed in theater-going audience, right? So we go see
Really?
movies.
Oh,
Black people and Latinos are the Black women and Latinos are the largest movie-going audience in America. Black women love Damson Idris. So you have all of this math going on, and you're banking on the fact that Formula One is a global sport. It's an international sport. So people outside of America will latch onto it for those reasons, and people in America will latch onto it for other reasons. And so you could have easily thrown a Glenn Powell or one of the hot young white actors in America into that car with Brad, but it would have changed the entire appeal of the film. And so, especially when you have a producer in Lewis Hamilton.
right. I was gonna ask how important is that link between Lewis Hamilton and casting a Black actor as the young up and coming hotshot? Do you think?
I have to imagine it's a huge deal, and I think it probably played a huge role in that partnership. And granted, I don't know necessarily who came first, Damson or Lewis, but I got to imagine if it was probably Lewis, and it probably was definitely something he pushed for, I would imagine. And it again, it's that math you have to do when you're a studio trying to calculate where the money's going to come from. And we live in a world now where when people see movies with all white cast, knowing who's going to see movies, it can definitely hurt your box
That's
office when you're
really
like, that's an
interesting.
easily that character could have easily been a person of color. It was not necessary for. It's not a period film. It's not.
Right?
It's not
Yeah,
a.
yeah.
What's that show on Netflix? Shonda
Bridgerton.
Rhimes show.
Oh, I
It's
thought you were
not
going to say
Bridgerton
Bridgerton.
F1. Yeah. So
That's really interesting. I've never heard that concept of the Hollywood maths and the demographic of theatre goers in the US. That is all brand new information to me. I had absolutely no idea about that. But Cristina continues her crusade of making me feel quite old by saying Brad Pitt's not like a big star. I'm like, huh? But like, of course he is, because of, oh yeah, that film was quite a long time ago. But to my, like, he's still one of the most recognizable movie names in history.
I mean, he won an Oscar like 3 years ago, 2 years, like not that long ago. But like you are correct, Christina, in the sense that like I get to a certain age group, Brad Pitt doesn't matter very much. Mr. and Mr. Smith was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so, but to Hollywood, he's still what they consider a bankable star. He has a movie coming out this year with George Clooney called Wolves, that almost guarantees it was sold because of George Clooney and Brad Pitt being the stars.
We're going to have to explain that. So, Cristina, George Clooney is an actor from a hospital drama called ER.
I do know that.
In the long ago. I think the other interesting choice, I think, for the Formula One movie is you could have had something like Rush, where it was basically a story of two competitors that could have been in virtually any sport. But here, they've really gone around the F1 brand, and they've, filming it in real life using F2 cars, having the halo, being a part of the lineup for the national anthems, and even in the background of the British Grand Prix, you would see Lando Norris, and he's doing his interview about how, I should have won again, but I didn't. And then Brad Pitt's wandering through doing his pretend interviews, and there was a great clip of Fernando Alonso going, huh? What's Brad Pitt? What's Brad Pitt doing here? So, Cristina, I think that's one of the, the big choices of the film, and I'm unsure whether that takes away or gives it a USP.
I think for a lot of people, it's going to make it incredibly cool because it will feel so genuine and so immersive. But I know for me, my big thing that I'm really concerned about for me viewing it is I think noticing all of those real people is actually going to pull me out of the fictional world of it, because you are living in this very strange place where it is both real and fictional, and you're not doing it in the sense of like, oh, Titanic, they're fictional characters, but they're actors playing the real ones. You have the actual people playing themselves. So it creates this weird space where you're always asking for a certain level of suspension of disbelief when it comes to movies, and especially when you're, talking about making a fictional version of something very, very real and very, very modern. And in this case, I think it'll be either a very, very fun thing for a lot of people, but I do think a lot of us are also just going to be pulled out of those moments by being like, Gunter.
I think, yes.
Driver.
Yeah, Gunter Steiner in the trailer is very kind of DTS, and I can see that definitely as a risk. But for example, like Ready Player One, where, say, my kid is just seeing cool graphics and cool computer games, whereas for me, every scene is a nod to my childhood. So it could just be you and I, Cristina, and you, Travon. We're F1 nerds. If they catered the film specifically to us, no one's going to see it.
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point, Christina. It could definitely pull people out of it in some way. I think it goes back to what you were saying, Spanish, earlier about where do you draw the line between the realistic aspects of a thing and the Hollywood part of it. And this is definitely one of those things where when you're dealing with when you're making a movie about a sport with 20 people in it as its like primary stars, Formula One, for starters, there's so few movies and shows about it because of how difficult it is to get into in terms of making something authentic, and two, how expensive it is to reproduce it on screen. It's so expensive. So you also have a challenge then in going, do we spend another $100 million and create 20 original teams with original
That's a
cars,
good point.
with
And
original
tracks, yeah.
actors as drivers, and then and we use obviously the F1 circuits. And do we call them something else, or do we call them what they are? Like, so these are all the things that get weighed in the process of making these things. And I would guess pretty quickly the conversation was, we'll use the real drivers.
Yeah, I think it's my instinct is going to be pretty cool. So, for example, like there's the Gran Turismo movie that was out lately, and I think they had a fair shake of the stick. I suspect they didn't have the same budget that this F1 movie is going to have. But for example, they did the final turn of Le Mans, but it was a hairpin right-hander, and instantly, as a motorsport fan, you're like, no, what? No, we're not in a hairpin, are we, at the end of Le Mans? And I think they actually used Hungaroring in the end. So to have that authenticity. So in the trailer, you can see them going through Brooklands and Luffield and straight away go, okay, that's pretty real. So does that take you out of it, Cristina, or is that, authentic?
For me, anytime that they move away from reality, if I can tell that it's to justify a point in the plot or the storytelling, I'm like, okay, yes, I will forgive you for that. So like the visor we were talking about earlier, I was like, yep, okay, that's fine. I get why you're doing it. You want us to see facial expressions, cool. But there are some things where you're looking at it, you're thinking about it, and it just feels lazy almost, where it's like you guys, especially when you have a movie like this with Lewis Hamilton involved, you have somebody who knows so much about the sport. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it is for me. If you have somebody who knows so much about the sport telling you what works and what does not, you have to have a good reason for deviating from that. And if it's to serve the plot and storytelling, yep, forgiven. I get it.
Yeah.
If there isn't a reason, there isn't a reason, though.
I will say, Travon, Cristina is representing a huge swathe of the reaction of F1 fans watching the trailer who are nervous. and I think there's a lot of well-wishers. So I'm definitely like a well-wisher for this movie because I like F1 as a club. So I want that club to do well. But there will be an element of when the movie comes out, however well it's received by critics, F1 fans are going to sit there and crap watch it and sit there with notepads and pens picking over every detail.
Absolutely.
Brad already picked up that the seatbelt goes over the hands device or something, and that can't possibly work. But at least they did capture the sense of speed from that trailer. So I wanted to talk a little bit about field of view. So, for example, for gaming, you want quite a tight field of view when you're sim racing, so that things slow down, you're not being distracted. But here they went very deliberately for a very wide field of view. It made the cars seem quite small, but it gave you that sense of like speed and the circuit rushing past you.
Yeah, if you look at it, it's actually very, very similar to how they shot the fighter jet scenes in Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, right.
The DP on F1 is also the same DP from...
what's a DP, please?
From Top Gun Maverick. Director of photography, that's the guy in charge of your cameras, and you're making your movie look like what you imagine in your brain as a director. That's the director of photography. And they tend to... they have their own... what's the term? Like they have their own signatures in terms of how they make movies, which is why you hire them. I want that guy because he shoots things like this. I want this guy because he shoots things like that. And so Claudio, having just made Top Gun Maverick with Joseph Kosinski, naturally jumps right back on to another fast-paced, high-octane action movie with him again. And you can actually look through that trailer and you can go look at the Maverick trailer. You'll notice some of the same frames of the inside the race car interiors and the cockpit interiors to give you that same thrill, that same feel of how things are, how fast things are going.
I think they almost have to just pound our senses in the cinema to distract us from that and go, okay, yes, some nerd podcasts are going to sit there and say, well, that's not how the racing line into Luffield.
Like if you look at some of the best action films that are not based on like real life. You look at Bruckheimer films. The brilliance of Jerry Bruckheimer is he knows how to make you feel things. He knows how to make you feel what a story is trying to tell you. And so I think there will definitely be a story there to serve the action, but I don't think it's going to overindulge you in plot and narrative, because they know what you're there for. You know what this audience is there for, and they want to see racing. They want to see the cars. They want to feel like they're in Formula One. And so I think audiences, especially Formula One fans, are going to really have to go into this experience recognizing how difficult it is to film Formula One, period, and then how difficult it is to make a movie. And a lot of people don't know how difficult it is to make a movie. And there are a lot of decisions that get made where you have to go, I have to take this racing line that's not a real racing line because of how it looks on camera or because of how it plays. And the opposite of that is trying to serve the realness of a thing in a film, in a fictional film, so closely to the actual real thing that the movie is bad because you're making real life choices and not film choices. The reasons you go to the movies, the shots you want to see and the feeling you get from the way certain things take place, you have to be cinematic about it. You have to be a director. You're making a movie. And so
like filmmakers, sometimes it's like they're the grown-ups, and as viewers we're the children. We're like, no, we want lots of ice cream, and like, no, lots of ice cream will make you sick. No, I definitely want it. But Cristina, there must be some plot, because second Bridgerton reference of the day, we're still getting announcements on casting.
Yeah, we got the announcement, I think like an hour before we filmed this, maybe, that Simone Ashley, who stars in season 2 of Bridgerton, she plays the new Lady Bridgerton now. She is going to be in the F1 movie. And I love her. She is fabulous. She is drop dead gorgeous, and I could watch her face all day.
Yeah, I mean, they're not casting, people like me, are they? They're not stupid. They are. There is a little bit of eye candy in all the casting choices. Do we know what character she's playing, or?
They're keeping that very hush-hush. They just said that fans spotted her filming stuff, and so then production confirmed, yes, she's a part of this.
I bet Travon knows.
So I'm very excited about her. She's one of those up-and-coming actresses that that she's going to just blow it out of the park, and you just have to start giving her more and more meaty characters. Like, I'm very excited about her.
And you can tell us, Travon, if you know she's playing front jack person, then just spill the beans right now. Spill the tea.
I don't know anything, but I can make a phone call.
So you're close personal friends with a lot of people in the production, because you are in that world, and frankly you are slumming it being in the shed. Really appreciate you here. I was just watching an interview with you on top talk shows in the US talking about winning an Oscar, and then it's, well, join me in my shed with my messy background. So if I could pass on one thing, because you said there's still decisions to be made. The Gran Turismo movie, one thing they did really well was they had a background B-roll commentary from podcasters, YouTubers going, oh, I can't believe that Moldenborough has overtaken here. Like, oh, how far can he go? So that's what you need to push. You need to get like podcasts, and not those fancy production-based podcasts, independent podcasts. I'm not saying which ones, but I would go for the most downloaded independent podcast. But there was that kind of snippet of real life, using real broadcasters, using Gunther Steiner. Do you think we're going to see Crofty in the movie?
I would not be surprised. I would imagine if you're going to go for realism, you go all the way. I think about other sports movies where the films use the real announcers who are part of those sports because it feels real. It feels authentic. To Christina's point earlier, I would feel bought out by not hearing Crofty at this point. If you're going to go that real, you're going to give me all the real drivers and then just some guy doing the announcement. That would make me go, what the fuck? Like where's Crofty? Lights out and away we go. Where is it? I want it.
That is a good point. We would need lights out and away we go. But the feeling I got from the trailer was that it was going to be uber serious. This is life or death. We're building our car for combat, which you're not allowed to do, Brad Pitt. Who do you think you are, Kevin Magnussen? My feeling is it's going to be dark and difficult.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a pretty dramatic story. Given that they put the teaser out over a year before the movie releases.
What? It's a year? When's the release date?
September 2025, I believe.
Oh,
it's June next year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, June 25th, 27th. Yeah.
I can take that. Why? Yeah. Why do they do this? Why does filmmaking take so long?
It's, The
Have I
short
asked a big
answer is
question?
managing 400 people can be very difficult. But I as even in this business, I get annoyed by long lead trailers because of when it's something I'm excited about and knowing now I have to wait a year to get it, and you just tease me with 2 minutes of it. Um, and I think we'll probably get a full trailer sometime this year, maybe somewhere toward the end of the year. Because when you have a movie with a budget this big, you have to start your promotion extremely early. You have to cast the widest net for the most people possible to know your movie exists and to give them a reason to go see it.
This is a
Oh
big
yeah,
budget
this
movie.
is huge budget movie.
Biggest of
The
all time,
rumor
isn't it?
the
What?
rumor is 300 million, but
Yeah.
I would guess uh it's definitely between two. It's definitely two or more. It's definitely somewhere around there for a movie this big. Um and they're banking on uh doing what they did with Top Gun and getting people to go see it multiple times and
I saw it
make a
14
billion
times
dollars.
in theaters.
Christina, you're going to have to repeat that because I want everyone to know how. My campaign here is because you seem nice on TikTok. I would like everyone to know how nuts you are. How many times did you see Top Gun Maverick in theaters?
14?
Are
That's
you
too-
serious?
I'm dead serious. Yes, like it was a once a
Wow.
week, sometimes twice a week occurrence. I saw it on the big screens like consecutively, usually not the
Okay.
tiny little cheap ones,
Okay.
but like
Yeah.
the big
Wow.
ones. I have, I don't know
Why?
if you can see it in this clip, but I have like multiple posters in the background of it. It was post-COVID,
Wow.
okay? There wasn't much else to do for one, but I also just really liked it.
I mean, it was
I mean, look,
quite good.
that's why they made $1 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I was only half of that.
So I didn't realize that it was so big budget, if I'm honest. And I don't know why, because we've only got little snippets of it here and there. And so that gives me a little bit of confidence because like I desperately want this to succeed, and not just because my mortgage depends on F1 doing really well, but also like I just as an F1 fan, I will definitely crap watch it and crap talk all the little decisions they make. I'm desperate for it to do well. I actually just didn't realize or get that sense that it was such a big budget movie. But I'll tell you what,
it's going to look amazing.
well, here's the thing from the trailer, and I'm sure even Cristina will agree here. As an F1 fan, the action scenes going around Silverstone, I really got a scene of, yeah, that's definitely Silverstone. I think there's one scene where they go off at cops and they're going through, there's a scene where they go through gravel and you go, yeah, that is what F1 cars look like going through gravel. That's what F1 cars look like battling through Luffield. So I don't know. The action side, I have confidence in that. Cristina, I know you don't like some of the plot stuff, and you're right. I'm going to build my car for combat. You're right, but the action scenes, do they give you confidence?
Yes, again, I love the production team that's behind this. We've seen them do exceptional work. There was never a question if the action stuff was going to be good. I just love being nitpicky. It's one of the things I find joy in. I love being nitpicky.
We could have fun nitpicking it. So whenever that comes out, Missed Apex is definitely going to have watch parties, 100%. And we're going to have a whole show. And with the first 20 minutes will be everything we love about it. And then we're going to let rip. We're going to absolutely let rip. But you can get the action really, really wrong. So recently there was who's the Star Wars baddie that was in the Ferrari movie? Adam Driver, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, Adam Driver. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was good in that, and actually, the acting, the storytelling, building this kind of scene of breaking away and then having to get in bed with Fiat, all that stuff was really fascinating. The action sequences were, I guess, maybe not as high budget as this F1 movie is going to be. Like, it was jarring. It really, really took you out of it. I'm not the first one to say it. So you've got a big risk there, but they really focused on the people and the stories. So it depends, like, what do you want out of your motorsport movie?
Ferrari was supposed to tell you the story primarily of Enzo Ferrari.
Of Enzo, yeah.
And they knew you wouldn't go see a movie about Enzo Ferrari without some racing. So they had to give you some racing. And I think that's probably why it didn't take a top priority in its execution. because the primary focus was Adam Driver playing Enzo Ferrari, and so you're making that choice as a filmmaker to tell that story. Otherwise, you'd make a movie about Le Mans and about that race, and then that'd be a very different movie.
So with the Ferrari movie, by the way, because I enjoyed it apart from those action scenes, I warned listeners about it. So I said, if you're going to watch that, just know, and I even posted on Twitter, just know there's this one scene that will take you out of it. Bear with it. You have to get past that. They could have done it off camera, I think, and it would have been better. But then you have Ford versus Ferrari, which I think has kind of set the standard for having the story and having all the action and it be amazing. So there's a high recent bar out there with Christian Bale, Matt Damon, action, storyline. So that's what they're going to be compared to, is basically Rush and Ford versus Ferrari.
A big part of that is what your aim is, right? Some people are making movies to win Oscars and win awards, and to do that, to even get the attention of that, you have to have great story. You have to have great writing. The Oscars don't tend to reward great action, and there's a ton of it. So a movie like Ford vs. Ferrari, which I think did get some Oscar nominations, it's primarily focused on making you feel how great that story is. That that moment, those moments between Christian Bale and Matt Damon that you remember from that movie, coupled with really great driving and being selective on what those scenes are going to be and how they're going to fit into your narrative. Whereas a movie like F1 is here to serve you fast cars. I think you gather that from the teaser. I don't think they're going to spend the same amount of real estate as Ford vs. Ferrari in terms of its narrative. That's just my guess, based off of who's making it and what it looks like from the teaser.
I know there's a high bar, but I think just as Formula One fans, we are going to have to calm down. We are going to have to settle ourselves and go, it is for Hollywood. I just really hope they can do F1 justice. And I know Christina's negative about the cameos and the using the real drivers taking you out of reality. I think my overwhelming feeling about all of that is it's showing a respect to the subject matter. So I'm hoping it kind of drifts over that way, where F1 fans feel, actually, we're serviced before all the general audience. They're thinking about us first, even if they don't get every detail right.
Formula One audiences have to go into this movie with the thought top of mind, Hollywood made a multi-$100 million movie for my favorite sport.
Yeah.
And at the end, it's going to be a net positive. It's going to be a net positive for the sport. And the movie would have to be an absolute turd for it not to be. And I don't think that's the case based off the people who are making it. I would bet highly against that. And so at the end of the day, there are going to be things in there. I already know just how Hollywood works that are not going to vibe with exactly how it would have played out in real life or exactly how it works in real life, because that's just movie making. And you just gotta let it go. Whisper to your friend who is also, Formula One fan and knows how things work.
I'm not going to whisper. I'm literally going to do loads of shows about it and have watch parties and have all my friends over and all that kind of thing. Thank you very much, guys. I think the overwhelming thing is, whether you feel positive or negative about the trailer, we're really looking forward to it, and it is a massive event in the F1 fan space. So thank you very much to Cristina Lee Mace for joining me. Go and follow Cristina by searching for Cristina Fast Cars on TikTok. Am I close?
.fast cars. You always forget the dot.
Cristina.fastcars.
Yes.
There we go. Go and follow that. There's stuff there. If you are unsure about anything for upcoming Grand Prix, the bullet always summarizes what to look out for future Grand Prix. And of course, thank you so much. So glad to finally get you on here, Travon Free. Go and check out on Netflix. We've got a link in the show notes below. Oscar-winning movie, Two Distant Strangers. I watched it recently. It is a compelling and surprising watch. I should warn people, it's not an easy watch, but definitely Oscar worthy.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And it's so great to be on the show with.
You can also follow Travon on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle these days?
It's just that Travon.
Wow. Okay. You must have got in there early or paid a lot of money.
I might have. At the time, I knew somebody.
Nice. Excellent. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you don't think we're being too harsh on the trailer. I promise you, we approach this with love and excitement. Until we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast.